Now, another event relating to the visitation is the birth of John. It's quite a complex story and quite a lot of things happen, and we need to do a bit of inventing. And sometimes it's to gather things that are not necessarily included always in the diorama that's provided. So in this case, I have added here a little stand, a little table. The table, I have taken it from the Emmaus Encounter. Then another thing that we have to invent a little bit, we do have the character of Zechariah for this particular event, and it's been made specially to draw attention to the fact that Zechariah wrote down his name is John, and it's actually written on this figure. So there is a need to adapt, and by just taking simply a piece of felt that I happen to have, I have invented a little cloak around Zechariah that he can attend the temple with, or even have a conversation with Elizabeth before he departs for the temple, should that come into the booklet. But something like that is just a little bit of blue tack and a little bit of felt. Then you need material for the casting of the lots. So you can see some on the table there. And here's another example of other things that could be used. It's a matter of gathering some stones or little bits of wood, if you like. Now, what happens with the casting of the lot, actually those things would have an inscription on them of a number. And the one that would get the highest number, I imagine, will be the one who would have that, be the one chosen to enter into the temple. And that's the way that they chose. I've also added a few characters taken from the Gospel Characters Kit. Another character that is needed and is not included in this particular kit of the Visitation and the birth of John, of course, is an angel. So we have a few angels in the different kits, and it's a matter of picking one of those ones from the Annunciation, for example. So this is the booklet, and the birth of John. And the concept is, an angel appeared to Zechariah and brought the message that his wife would bear a son who would prepare the way of the Lord. Once again, you would draw attention to the magnet maps or another map, if you don't have a magnet map, and point out where Ein Karim possibly was, and alert to where Jerusalem is, which is where the temple was, and that is the background we have here. The temple diorama background is here, and this one is an interior of a house that could be like the interior of Elizabeth's house. So there are some words that we introduce to the children, and you begin before the presentation to actually explain these words so that they are not a distraction or a cause of confusion or an opportunity for them to understand a little bit more. So these are the words that I have selected. The words to know: the priest. The Jewish priests offered prayers and sacrifices to God in the temple at Jerusalem. Now, one thing to clarify with the children, in simple words, is that the priests were not Christian priests or Catholic priests. They were Jewish priests. So not to imagine them with wearing a cross of any kind. That's often what they'll imagine is we're meaning by a priest of the church as we know it today. But these were Jewish priests. They were dressed very differently, actually, and they wore special robes when they were entering the temple. Herod was the king who ruled Judea at the time. Righteous people are good people who are filled with faith in God and act accordingly, good before God, right before God. Then blameless is a word that means is innocent of any wrongdoing. And barren, unable to have a child. I've already explained the materials that we need, so we'll go on to the presentation right away. We're going to hear the story today of how John the Baptist was born. His parents were Elizabeth and Zechariah. Elizabeth was the cousin of Mary. The events we are hearing today took place 6 months before the angel appeared to Mary. 6 months before. So this happened before Mary was visited by the angel. We're going to be reading from St. Luke's Gospel, and I've lit the candle already. And the story takes place in the land of Israel. And you know where that is. Here's a map of Israel at the time of Jesus. And we have Jerusalem, which is the place where the temple was, depicted here. We have Nazareth in Galilee. Jerusalem is in Judea. We don't quite know where the house of Zechariah was, but it wasn't far from Jerusalem because he could travel there as a priest to take on his priestly work. And so he was probably around here somewhere. We're not quite sure where. So here's the reading. In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah. He had a wife of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both advanced in years. Now, while he was serving as a priest before God, when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, it fell on him by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and to burn incense. Here we have the lots. The lots were marked. They were like stones marked with numbers, and the one who got the highest number probably was the one who drew the lot. So this time, Zechariah draws the lot. Now, when he was serving as a priest before God, when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, it fell on him by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and to burn incense. I'm going to remove these other characters a little bit. I'm going to remove this. Now, speaking to his teachers, there are times when one has to invent the way we're going to do this. And it's a matter of moving things gently and just keeping on going as you've decided. And I'm stretching because I'm performing for the camera. And there we go. We'll just remove these characters for now. Don't have to say all this to the children, or you could, I suppose, but it doesn't matter. Now, there was a whole multitude of people praying outside at the hour of incense. And there appeared to him an angel. And there appeared to him then an angel of the Lord, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. And Zechariah was troubled when he saw him, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John. And you will have great joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth, and he will make a way ready for the Lord." Zechariah said to the angel, "How shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife is advanced in years." The angel said, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and I was sent to speak to you and to bring you this good news. Behold, you will be silent and unable to speak until the days when these things happen, because you did not believe my words." The people were waiting for Zechariah and wondered at his delay in the temple. And when he came out, he could not speak. And they realized he'd seen a vision in the temple. And it was after these days that Elizabeth conceived. Now we're going to stop and think about that for a moment. He went back to his home, and it was after that time that Elizabeth conceived. And it was 6 months later when the angel Gabriel, the same angel, appeared to Mary and told her that she was to be the mother of Jesus. And the angel also told her that Elizabeth, her cousin, was going to have a child. And Mary went quickly to visit Elizabeth. The story in the Bible continues. When it was time, Elizabeth gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives shared her joy, and on the 8th day they were going to name him after his father Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, "No, he is to be called John." But they said to her, "But none of your relatives has this name." And they made signs to his father to find out what he would name the child. And he asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, "His name is John." Immediately his mouth was opened and his tongue set free, and he began to speak, praising God. All the neighbors were filled with awe, and throughout the hill country of Judea, people were talking about all of these things. Everyone who heard this wondered about it, asking, "What then is this child going to be? For the Lord's hand was with him." I wonder. I wonder why the angel made Zechariah unable to speak until the child was born. I wonder why the people were surprised that the boy was not have the same name as his father, someone in the family. Do you know what the name John means? It means God has been gracious, or gift of God. That's a nice thing to know, isn't it? Then that's the end of the presentation. I'll just move this aside. Backstage here, with lots of bits and pieces, which is what will happen. But I just wanted to present a few ideas about what they can ponder with, what materials they can use. They can work with pictures in some way. They can organize a timeline of the story. They can trace, they can draw, they can paint. You can ask the children to write a sentence about the story to accompany their painting. You can choose to show a video at the closing of the session, an audio visual of the event, with perhaps a suitable song or a prayer, or the event reenacted in a way that you find attractive. It's very important, as I say sometimes very explicitly in these booklets, I give you some explanation for the children to explore the possibilities without telling them all the answers. Let them discover through their pondering. They need the time to explore the meaning, and that's why these responsive activities are just so important. They give children time to personally reflect. Mindful colouring in is perfectly fine for this. And as a teacher, it's valuable to personally explore this event ahead of the children, if possible. Not simply because of telling them the answers, but so you experience what the children themselves experience. So for responses, there could be things like this. This is taken from freebibleimages.com, which is a free resource available for teachers. And in this case, it's the story of Zechariah in film and clips from a film. I won't take you through the whole thing, because the whole story is there. They can arrange the story sequence. It's quite a long one in this case. There's just a few samples there. Okay, so it takes you through the story, right the way through. It's quite expansive. It's really worth having these. And of course, you've got the acknowledgement page at the end there. And this is an example of the story board, in a way. No, the storyline. This is an example of the storyline that's provided on the same website with the explanations and the references and pictures. And these can be laminated, I'd suggest, and cut up. Separate the words from the images. It makes a very neat little matching activity that some children will enjoy doing. Okay, so that's there for them. Several pages of this one, because it's quite a long one. There you go. So thank you to Free Bible Images. So there are a few ideas for giving children opportunities to ponder and how to present quite a complex event, the birth of John and how it came about. And in some of the booklets, you will also have the birth of John followed by the baptism of Jesus by John in the Jordan. And that will be another presentation.